Hello, welcome back to another fabulous channel. I'm Jay from J Books Corner, and today we're here to talk about Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Today we're going over the first 5 books in the series. I'm going to continue to be reading the rest of the series. I've actually started the next one, and it's so good. Like, oh my god, all my problems with this series are basically, it's good. It's good. That's all I gotta say. Very happy I'm continuing on because I was a little nervous. Not that I have any bad things to say about Percy Jackson. If you're looking for a Percy Jackson hater, this is not your video. I will say that right away as I have finished all 5 books. All 5 books have been reviewed. If by the end I'm in a bit of a weird space, same with the intro here. I had a passing in my family. It's really hard and traumatic. It only happened a few days ago, but I want to get this video out. I know I don't have to, but I want to get this video out before we do our live watch along. And in this video, I'm going to be covering the last 5 books. Percy Jackson will be January's month. Let's go ahead and jump into a little bit of a non-spoiler review. Our chapter times linked down below in case you're interested. I will have to mention all the books are spoiler filled except for this brief non-spoiler review, which we're about to jump into. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Percy Jackson and the Olympians. The first book, it follows Percy Jackson as he soon learns that he is a half-blood. A half-blood is someone, their mother screwed a god. They were born and now they're half god, half human, called Half-Bloods. He soon realizes he needs to go to a camp called Camp Half-Blood. At the very beginning of the book, his mother is killed by something, I won't mention it, and he is sent on this quest to go find a lightning bolt. And that is really what the point of the first book is, and then the series expands from there because of so many other little things. Things that are explained upon the first book, things that are like really mentioned in the second book. That's really all I can tell you, non-spoilerly, about the series. And let's go ahead and jump into it, Jacob. About a month ago, when I first started Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Let's talk about the first book in the Percy Jackson series, which is by Rick Riordan. I mentioned, I think in the intro, I'm not entirely sure if I did or not. Who knows, I might redo that intro. Who knows? I want to mention it here. I have seen the movie with Logan Letterman. I saw both those in theaters when they came out. I also tried reading Percy Jackson back in like 7th grade. I read part of it with my little sister back in 2021, I want to say. Yeah, 2021. But I've never finished it before. Supposedly I have. Goodreads told me I did. And I didn't really remember the story that was being told to me in book form, but I did very much remember the movie itself. So a lot of things were different, and I was like, oh, that's weird. That's a bit different, but I liked it. The story follows Percy, if you guys don't know what Percy Jackson is about. So it's Percy as he is being thrown around to these different schools and getting kicked out, having to go back home to his mom, who is being emotionally and physically abused by her boyfriend, husband, fiance. I don't know. They end up going on a trip to this lake where his friend Grover ends up coming as well, and they end up getting stopped by a minotaur. His mom is pronounced dead. He ends up going to this camp called Half-Bloods, where it is revealed that he is part demigod, that his mom had a sexual relationship with one of the gods, not revealed yet. I did kind of read the description. It does sound like they do reveal the god. I mean, it's pretty obvious. It's Poseidon. The god of Poseidon is his dad, and they are tasked on this quest to go find a lightning bolt that supposedly Hades has. So they have to go underworld and stuff. He agrees to go on this quest to go save his mother, who they suspect could bring back from the dead from the underworld. And that is basically Percy Jackson Olympians. I mean, there's so much other stuff that goes on. That is the basic setup for the book, and that's probably the first like 20% of the novel. I liked it. I liked the writing quite a bit. I liked Percy's snarky humor. I didn't think any of the characters were super unlikable, which is also very exciting. Even the bad characters I really enjoyed. My only issue I guess I had with this one, and we'll see as we progress because I know the books do get longer, are the action sequences. That was the only part that I truly did not enjoy. And me already knowing most of the big story beats and story plot points, my brain kinda remembered some of them. I think also kinda hurt the book in a way because there was no twists, there was no surprises. Even the final twist I knew, and I kept hoping that it'd be revealed in this book because I really don't remember the second one at all. And so I'm excited to read Sea of Monsters, but I don't remember a lot of people liking the second book, so I'm also nervous. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into some spoilers. I rated a 4, by the way. Go ahead and jump into some spoilers. So the things I very much remembered were going against Mrs. Dobbs, Medusa, those type of things. The difference here being, I think the sequences with Mrs. Dobbs are pretty different from the movie, and then of course Medusa, I don't think they're in a garden. I don't even think it's like a shop that she tries to feed them. I think they end up in this florist shop or something. That's where Medusa's at. I also don't think they used her head to kill Gabe off and sell him for parts, which is what his mother does, which I thought was a very interesting choice. I liked it, but I was like, oh, that's pretty dark. That's an interesting choice to be spreading in this kid's book. But I liked it, so I wasn't mad about it. I just thought it was. I knew that it was Luke who was behind the whole thing because I very much remember Luke being a bad guy from the movies, not because of the books, simply for the movies. I liked Annabelle Annabeth as a character. I liked Grover as a character quite a bit. I like both their storylines. I forgot that Grover goes off on its own as well. I also find it interesting that these books only take place during a summer. Overall, those summers do feel really, at least in this first book, really fleshed out, and so I really enjoy that aspect. So that's a big problem I have with some other books that take place at this like place. I also think the idea of half-bloods are explained super duper well, and so I think the world building is done very organically. I think the characters behave as kids would in situations that are for adults, which I also very much enjoy, and I do think they go into those more darker realms in this book as well. I just wish the action sequences could be a little bit stronger. I'm excited for some character development. From what we understand, the narrator of Percy, he has already gone through a lot of these events because of how it's talked about. I read the beginning of Sea of Monsters. It's the same exact narration. So I do wonder, once we catch up to this Percy, who he's talking to, why is this book being written? If there is a reason why. I don't have any. I also don't have theories for the second book. I'll probably start theorizing for the third book and onward. That being said, I'll update you guys when I read Sea of Monsters. I'm going to come here and talk about the Sea of Monsters by second book in the Percy Jackson series. I don't really have a lot of spoilery thoughts to talk about this book. To be fair, I did not really care for this one. I think we landed on like a 3.25. It was a much bigger downtide. I don't know if that's because I really didn't like the movie, and so like all these like feelings just reverted over to the novel. I know this is some people's least favorite out of the entire series, and so it does give me hope for the rest of the series and things. I will continue onwards. Do not worry. I'm really hoping I'm not going to finish these 5 and be like, why did I commit to 17? I haven't gotten there yet. I like the characters enough. I think part of the reason why I didn't like this one as much is that the fact that Grover wasn't in it. I like Grover as a character. Miss some Grover-ness, so I'm excited. I don't know how much he's going to be in the other ones. I also didn't love the new main character in it as well, which I think his name is like called Titan. Not Titan, that's what he is. Thornton Thomas, something out of those lines. I did not care for his brother. I thought he was cute, but I just didn't think there was like too much here. I thought chariot races were pretty cool that were introduced, but I didn't care for them either. And the overall plot, I felt very filler, which is really interesting. Whereas I like the first book plot, felt very, very good, whereas the second book plot, not as good. I do like this through line for the prophecy though, that when he turns 16, he is supposed to be the death of somebody, whatever that might be, and the fact that Kronos is still being built up in the background, even by Luke, who I don't like. What is up with these characters being cookie cutter? Oof. But then again, have to be fair, this is written for middle grade, so I am going to put a little asterisk on some of the annoyances in this regard, just because I've read enough of these at this point right now. I've read like 14 of different types of these books. They're pretty much the same in the same regard for their villain characters. So yeah, I'm really excited to explore more of the gods and be more at Camp Half-Blood. So I'm hoping that book 3 will get into more of that. But overall, like I said, I really didn't have a lot of opinions about Sea of Monsters. I'm very sorry if this is like a favorite book and you're really looking forward to me like talking about some stuff. I really like the development of the relationship between Percy and Annabeth. Also, I somehow remember that the girl Thella, the daughter of Zeus, came back to life. Probably because either that's how the movie ends or they moved that plot point further higher in the movie. Because I remember in the movie that he had a relationship, a liking towards a different girl, and that actually could have been Carice, because Carice has a pretty sizable role in this book. I didn't like Carice, so I'm not talking about her, but she had a pretty sizable role in this book. Either way, I'm excited to see what book 3 has to offer. I feel like the ending was really, really strong, enough to make me like very excited for the next book, even if I didn't love this one, which is all I can really ask for a sequel I don't enjoy. Just make me excited to continue onwards. I'm taking a little bit of a break. I'm reading a few other books in between this one because I have a few days that I can spare. So we're doing that, but do not worry, we're jumping back into it very, very soon. So when I read it, I'll let you guys know. Let's talk about book number 3, which I think I liked less than book number 2. This is a bad sign. I'm so excited to book number 4. I'm very excited to see what book number 5 will allude to. This one just felt really weird. I feel like I missed something. Is there a novella that I missed? I think it still takes place in the same year as book 2, but then again, they said it like a year ago, so I'm not entirely sure. In the beginning of this book, we end up meeting Percy as he's going to the school with Grover, as they're hunting down 2 new people who they think could be very important, with Talia and Annabeth is already there. They end up finding these 2 new people. Nico, who I know eventually, I think Nico gets his own book later on, or is very important to the story. And then his sister as well. What we will soon realize is that they end up coming out and then they end up getting attacked, and then Annabeth ends up going down into this cave, and Thalia and these hunters who show up, which is a group of girls who I think were referenced in one of the movies because they seemed oddly familiar. I could be wrong though. These group of hunters show up, and one of them being like the goddess of something, Artemis. is also a part of this group. Artemis ends up being kidnapped as well once they get back to like Half-Blood Camp. We are sent on this journey of trying to find Annabeth and Artemis and stopping whatever the big plot is going on. That's really is the point of this novel, and that is the whole thing. I didn't mind the characters. It wasn't the characters thing. It was the fact that we didn't start out as a normal Percy Jackson book. We got thrown into a plot point that was not really set up outside of some loose dialogue and things like that. And so I just didn't think we were like on a good track. I just think that we were all over the place. And I felt like that way for the rest of the novel as well. I feel like Percy is a very interesting place in his life. I think that plays a big part into it. I don't think every book needs to start with the summer, but I don't know. It makes me feel normalized, I guess. Also, this is the first book that does not summarize what happened before. There's a few lines, like I said, of dialogue where they reference things that happened in the past, but nothing explicit, which is not bad. But it's also like kind of jarring, I guess, because I kind of got used to this formula. I'm happy that Rick Riordan is showing that he can switch it up, and I'm curious if the next book will start there. But I think here's the thing. I think I kind of wanted the book either to start with the rest of summer that they were going to go through, something else after the end of Sea of Monsters, because Thalia as a character gets introduced at the very end of the book. And now we're already introduced to a character that knows Percy. They have some baggage. There's some development already there off camera or off page or whatever. And to me, it just felt really, I don't know, weird. And the whole relationship felt weird. She ends up leaving the group by the end of the book anyways, joining a different group, proving to her father Zeus that she will not be the one to start this war, but there is other people who could. So some interesting things that I did take out of this novel. I didn't really think the plot of the book was super cool. Wasn't my favorite one. I liked the fact that he could like ride these horses that he did end up saving. The cow thing was interesting. It did have a payoff, being the sacrificial cow. I liked how Poseidon ends up backing him in the end. But the actual journey to get there, I didn't really find anything that I was like, oh my god, I need to talk to a vlog about. So I don't have anything to tell you about my thoughts and opinions on that. I'm sorry. I just don't have anything to add to a conversation that's already been going on for so many years for this particular book. The things that I do have to add to conversation for, I've liked that Nico is the son of Hades. That's really interesting. I also like the idea that Nico was born in like the 60s. It's a very interesting idea based on the conversations that they had, probably early 70s is my best guess, because they end up being trapped in that hotel, which is a nice callback, and it proves that things that happen in the past can show future. They could have ran to them. Who knows? We also weebly open up who came and got them. I have a feeling it's probably going to be Ares or something along those lines. And then we also know that Clarice went on this interesting quest, and that doesn't answer here either, which I very much enjoy. Annabeth is back, and she is staying. She is not joining the Hunters. Grover also brought back news that he has found the person he needs to find, and they have sent a clue for whatever's to come. It has been pretty much set in stone that Percy is the person who's going to end up either saving the gods or ending the gods. This is a 17-book series, so my best guess is saving the gods. But we will see as the books progress. We have 2 more to go for this series, and then it's done. I liked it. It's a bit longer. It was a bit heftier of a book, and I didn't really think it needed the extra heft because I didn't really think the development for the characters are here. I find it interesting that they're really setting the groundwork for Percy and Annabeth to get together eventually, which I do think that would be fine. They're still very young. He's 14 in this one. She's 14 in this one. I liked her parents, the dad that came in. I like meeting all the other gods, like having full sequences. I like the fact that Annabeth's mom doesn't really like him. I was like, yeah, no, it's bad vibes. I get it. I enjoyed having a bit more backstory into where the sword came from, answering some of those questions, but I feel like the problem with skipping time, and I have this issue with most books that are sequels that skip a bunch of time in a thing. I do it too, so I get it. I feel like there's some uneven ground, but there's also conversations such as, I don't know, like, okay, for instance, if someone changed their hair, and this is something you see 24/7, but in the book, you skip 6 months, and they change their hair in that 6 months, and you as an author needs to bring up the fact that hair has changed for some reason. We're using an example here. Bringing up in dialogue or things like that make it seem really odd. There are several conversations that Percy and other characters have that I feel like he would probably already have had, and I guess that's where I'm at. I don't know. It was a 3. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I'm the most mixed on it so far. Sea of the Monsters, I truly thought was just okay. Percy Jackson, I thought was pretty good, and so we're gonna hope that the fourth one, which is the Titan's Curse, I think is what it's called, or is this one called the Titan's Curse? I don't know what the 4th one's called. Is better. I'll get back to you on the note. Oh, also this whole thing with Luke, very curious. He's not dead though, so That's interesting. I want to give me here an update, guys, on book 4 of Percy Jackson. Titan Curse? Is that book 3? I don't know what book 4 is called. I can't remember. Oh, the Labyrinth. Something about the Labyrinth, because this whole book takes place in the Labyrinth. So essentially, at the very end of the last book, we learn that Carice came back from a thing, but we weren't really sure what that thing was. And in this book, we learn that that thing is her and this other boy who ends up getting really sick throughout most of the novel, found a labyrinth beneath the camp. And it looks like it's beneath the entire world, or at least the United States, because they don't really travel past the United States. Or I guess they travel into a few different sectors, but not past the continent of, like, North America. We assume that's through North America. Essentially, Annabeth is tasked to go on a quest of going and doing this thing. I will have to say, overall, I quite enjoyed the story of this book. I quite enjoyed every angle about it, except for 2. So this is the first book where they start to introduce romance, which is pretty, I guess I don't know why I was so shocked by it. Maybe because the kiss comes out of nowhere, and I didn't really like the placement of the kiss, like in the scenes and stuff. Like, I understood it, but I just didn't, like, it didn't make me super happy when Annabeth kissed Percy for the first time. Since we're talking about the negatives, we'll talk about the good stuff here in a minute. I don't love how Percy also got introduced to 2 more love interests, one he'll never see again, but he does pay homage to at the very end of the book, and then one who is very much in his face, who's like this rich person who I liked. She was introduced in the last book, and so like that one was a bit more like good. But let me explain kind of where you're at in the book when the kiss happens between Annabeth and Percy. So we just got done through this like big, where he is about to be left with this like big battle by himself for the first time ever. He has learned that it only takes a spark of water or something along those lines to be able to get him his powers from Poseidon, from this half god. We're not entirely sure what that means. And the last time he used it, it was very scary. But to be honest with you, I would say the power usage in some of the action set pieces is the worst parts of the Percy Jackson novels, at least the beginning Percy Jackson novel. This is a beautiful thing of reading 17 books like almost back to back. You get to see the evolution of Rick Riordan as a writer. And so I'm quite excited to get to bigger series where he has a lot more like talent into writing these scenes. I've read quite a few different action sequences, especially for the type of audience that he goes after, that they can be better and they can be written better and the whole usage of it could be better. That still being said, a lot of powers is on forefront here. Almost everybody gets their own little moment. Annabeth gets her moment with the quiz bowl that she ends up having to go through, which I thought was really nice and really sweet, and I really liked that moment for her. That's phase 1. So they end up kissing. Annabeth runs off to go do her own quest to finish what she came down there to do. Then, which is to find the person who originally created it so they could destroy the labyrinth or take it down or whatever it might be, because we learned that Luke is having an army coming through this entire thing to the camp of some sort. We'll talk about the Luke stuff in a minute. We're going to go through the kiss part, because that was like one of the main issues, and I want to talk about the issues first, and then we can talk about the good stuff, because there's a lot of good things in this book. This is the highest rated one so far. They end up kissing because they end up breaking off, and he's taken aback by it, but then he goes and he does this like magical thing that's not really described very well, because he says, I just can't bring into words, which to me seems more like a cop-out, but also like I understand like the audience you're trying to portray for. I'd like to see the visual representation of the scene, so maybe I'll do some research, because I think it would be really cool to sequence. But he ends up pulling a bunch of water, like getting away and doing all this other stuff. He ends up waking up another Titan that can kill everybody, being like it really, really bad, and killing quite a few different people in the process, or injuring quite a few different people in the process as well, because it ends up affecting a whole part of the globe, this thing that he doesn't underneath. But he ends up getting sent into this world with a character that I was very familiar with. I think I'm more familiar with the version of her in Greek mythology. Well, I guess this is Greek mythology. Is this where Loki and Thor are? What is that? North mythology? Then here in Greek mythology, she was cursed to an island by her because of her dad, and she has sent boys that she could possibly fall in love with that can never stay. So it's like a torture. Essentially, the kiss happens, and then he like falls in love with this girl in like 10 pages, and it was so annoying, and I was so annoyed while reading it, because I was like, it just seems so unrealistic. And I know this book is extremely unrealistic. We're dealing with all these different things, right? But like, I don't know. And then having the key, so we have that, and it's so obvious, and they don't talk about it, and everybody else knows that it happened. It's not like because he leaves, obviously, to go finish the quest, but everybody knows, and he can't understand why Annabeth is mad, and yet he never once references, like in this whole entire sequence, he's like, I know I need to get back to my friends, I know I need to do this quest. It's not like when they got stuck in Las Vegas. So like, if you knew this, and you know the fact that you don't need to be here because Annabeth's just like I don't know, told you her feelings by kissing you. And then he gets mad later on in the book, like towards the end of the book, when she doesn't kiss him back, or when she doesn't kiss him again. And it's like, dude, no, she's not going to kiss you again. You, like, one, told her the person that she truly looked up to is, like, gone, and you did it in a really, really cruel way. Then you've been gallivanting this other girl around, and you've been flirting with her the entire book, or the rest of, the last, like, third of the book. So that brings us into Act 3. Act 3, I think, is a bit more of a messier situation. I think the first 2 acts are pretty strong. Then Act 3, there's a battle, and I just think everything just moves a little too fast for my liking and, like, my own storytelling. But, like, once again, I'm not the audience that I typically read for, so, and based on other things I've read in this audience, this seems pretty accurate, I'm gonna be honest with you. So I actually don't think it's a negative towards, like, the book. It's just a negative towards, like, my reading preferences. But besides the point, they end up bringing in another girl. I can't remember her name. It's like Elizabeth or something like that. She is the girl that he meets in the last book who can see through the fog. We don't know why she can see through the fog. We just find out at the very end of this that she is rich. We also learn about this girl that her dad buys up properties and then tears them down and builds, like, real estate on them. And I have to wonder if this is a foreshadow for book 5, where her dad's gonna buy up the land for Halfwood, or what they believe is the land for Halfwood Hill, because, like, obviously Halfwood Hill doesn't exactly exist there, but there's, like, a lot of land around it, and the land that maybe that's, like, a subplot of where her dad's, like, tearing it down, and there's, like, this animosity, because obviously I know Annabeth is, like, endgame, so, like, why throw in another girl who likes Percy? Why, like, you know that trope that everybody hates? Glass is a good example of that trope, where people are like, oh my god, you're the prettiest thing in the world. Everybody wants you. Everybody is dying to be with you. That's like Percy Jackson, and it's kind of weird because he's like 14. Actually, he's 15. Yeah, he's 14 in this book. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts and opinions on the relationship drama that does spark here. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I'm okay with them, like, not being together because, like, that's the whole point of the next book, is to get them together by the end. Grover's also aged up a shit ton since then. So Grover's big moment is during the battle, after we learn that he finds Pan, and Pan basically says, I'm dying, let me go, please let me die, I've been waiting for so long. And so he does, and now almost, I can't figure out if he is now Pan, like his essence now went into Grover, or if everybody is now Pan. That I don't think was very clear, at least in my head. Let me know if there is more clear thoughts, or maybe book 5 will answer that question for me. We'll see. The Battle of Labyrinth. That's what this book is called. And then we also learn about Kronos. So Kronos is now under the inhabitants of the body of Luke. So Luke plays a somewhat smaller part in this novel. He only pops up a few times, and one of those times being in the body of Kronos. And he has gone through to get a bunch of Titans under his side to come to bring the half-blood. They end up, the person who was alive for such a long time, the creator of the maze, ends up dying in the end and giving all his stuff to Annabeth. Then he passes on, and the maze like erupts and dies and crushes and stuff. That doesn't actually end up happening, but a lot of people do end up coming, and there was this battle sequence that I didn't really care for. I didn't really think it was that well written. Once again, I'm not the target audience, and I know that, so do take it with a grain of salt. Maybe you thought it was really well written. I've read other battle sequences with books and age ranges the same way that I thought were better written, so that's kind of what I'm going off of. And another one, Nicholas? What is it? Nikolai? I can't remember his name, but you know what I'm talking about, the son of Hades. Obviously a minor character throughout this series. I know he gets his own book, and so I do know he's a fan favorite, but he ends up like pushing out the dead and bringing back like different soldiers, which I thought was really cool. So even he got a moment, and like I said, Grover got this moment of screaming, and all the rest of the people run away because he was so scared. It's like the panic button or whatever, which I really liked. I felt like it was really well earned. One, I really liked the resolution with Grover's, like all Grover's stuff, because I really think it's been building for so long, and I think the payoff was really worth it. I think at the very end of this book, the Percy stuff was not as well done as some of the side characters. I also think Annabeth's like ending of the storyline I also really enjoyed as well. I think she's on a good pathway for that next book. Percy ends up having a conversation with Poseidon, saying that you are on the right pathway and things like that, but he also like basically alludes to something darker is going to happen. Poseidon has to go away to go down to the sea gods because they're in a fight, and so we all know that, you know, book 5 was supposed to be the final book before we started branching off into all these different series, and so I'm expecting, I'll tell you guys once I'm done with that book, and we can close out the first book, this first video for Percy Jackson. I want to come here and give you guys the final update for Percy Jackson and this 5th book. This book took me the longest amount to read just because I had a lot of personal stuff which I talked about at the very beginning of this video going on, and so I kept starting and stopping. I also had several books in between this I had to get done because of like time constraints and stuff. Besides point, the 5th book follows Percy as he is trying to stop the war and then starting the war and going through the war of New York, of this battle in New York against Luke and or Kratos and Kronos or whatever, and the whole 9 yards. Going and recruiting all these gods, trying to stay on their side, trying to, get all these like little things in here. I think most people's big takeaway, I can't think of his name, which is horrible. I think he's one of the characters. He has a book. Miko? I love him. Don't get me wrong. I like him. He's the son of Hades. I really enjoyed his character. He plays a big role here. And we also deal with Achilles. Percy ends up getting an Achilles heel type of situation. Their relationship, once again, is not resolved by the end of this book. So I think that's where I want to sit with first, is the relationship stuff. And then we can talk about some bigger plot point things. Kind of where the characters left off, where he left off, and then what's to come. Because they do mention that the more is to come. Could be the reason why Rick Riordan maybe had thought, okay, we did the whole kiss last book. I just don't think maybe it's best to move forward with the relationship past the point where it's at currently. My biggest problem with this, and I do hope they kind of change it, are 2 things. The jealousy, I think it's maybe realistic. I just didn't love it. I ain't gonna lie, I didn't love it on both sides. I also don't love how dumb Percy is when it comes to certain things. I mean, he hasn't really had a lot of girls like him, which is kind of hard to believe when you think about the books and what they try to foretell or whatever. You're like, oh no, he's had like a lot of girls like him, and that's really not the case. And I think that's really important to remember. He's also young. He's 16 at the end of this one, so he's not that young. I feel like he should know. I feel like someone should have sat him down and been like, dude, Annabeth is like madly in love with you. She's been madly in love with you. She has basically told you her feelings, and you still went after this girl, Rachel, who ends up being what I expected to be the new seer person who tells all the quests at Camp Half-Blood. And that's really Rachel's whole point here. And so I think even like, once again, Rick Riordan set up another relationship, and I felt the same way when the other girl popped up in the last book, or the Labyrinth book. I don't think that was the last book. I think, no, it was the last one. The last book was the Labyrinth one. I just didn't personally feel like there was any point to it. I think if we would have just developed this relationship and had Rachel be a platonic friend, and then having this platonic friend to be developed into this other character, I think it would have worked better in my opinion. I don't think the love triangle was really triangling in my opinion. That's kind of just how I feel. I wished more from it. I wished more out of it, and I think that there was a potential for having more out of it, and I just don't think it lived up to any of that. When it comes to the actual stories and stuff, Grover was a very interesting character throughout this entire series. I think with each book, especially after him discovering Pan and things, and his whole goal was done. I don't really know if Rick Riordan understood why or what he did when he decided this moment, because Grover as a character here, yes, he got all these different gods and not gods, all these different creatures to come help in this battle, but like, he didn't really serve a purpose in this novel in my opinion. He eventually does become like the head person. Everybody love him, he's no longer exiled, whole 9 yards. But then again, I never really once felt like he was exiled at all. I also don't love how they introduced the character in this one at all. I don't think there's anything that really paid off to it except to introduce the sleeping god who can put everybody to sleep, or demon, or whatever you want to call him, and him putting New York to sleep, or putting New York on slow-mo. I guess was like the whole point of it, but I didn't really necessarily agree with it, so it wasn't my favorite aspect of the story either. Annabeth is a character I really enjoyed. Once again, I think she's spunky. I think she needs to maybe chill a little bit, but I think overall I'm just really happy and proud of where her character went, and how much she was in this book, and how much she was in this story, and how much it meant to her to see this through, even as much as painful it could be on both sides of the fight with both Percy and Luke. Luke as a character I think got a lot of development here too, and also Hermes got a lot of development, and so I ended up liking almost all these characters by the end as well. Percy has pretty much stayed in the same exact character point from the first book. He's never really left his attitude. He's never really left his growth. It's not really been, I mean, him as a warrior has been growing. Him as a swordsman has been growing. Him as anything else, I don't really think he has. But I think that is a conversation that's even bigger than the story, and I don't think that's what Rick Riordan intended the conversation to be, is that like, once you put it in a moment at 13 years old or 12 years old, he went through something extremely traumatic. We have this we had a little bit of growth. I'm not saying he was just being like a stationary one-dimensional character. He definitely is a three-dimensional character. I don't know. I think the same problems over and over again, teaching the same lessons, got a little bit repetitive from an older audience member, and maybe from a younger audience. I was trying to think, maybe my sister would really like the love triangle, and maybe she would like really enjoy like Percy as a character and things. And so maybe I'm just not, once again, the right audience for it, but I'm just telling you my reaction and my opinion on the novel, you know, a review. I just know this is a very popular series and I want to delegate this again. So where everybody leaves off, we'll do that. So basically, once again, the battle I think was better written here. Not my favorite. Once again, I don't know if it's because the middle grade is holding him back, and I'm curious, once again, as we go into more and more into this world, if my opinion of it will change, or because this is like really his first taste into an epic battle sequence, or more than one. The majority of the last half of the book was a big battle, which is great. Don't get me wrong, I loved it. A bit too fast. There wasn't a lot of development after some flashbacks. I feel like, but you're going with a brisk pace, and that's what you decided to go with, and it was very brisk, and it was very pacey, and we got done with it, and I felt like I pretty much got, you know, almost an entire story. I'm happy there was more, because it does not feel like an end. I feel like if I was reading this and not knowing that there would be more, I think I'd be mad, because I'd be like, okay, but where's the rest? Maybe not as a child, I'd be like, oh, that's cool, but like, as an adult, I'm like, there's more to the story, outside of the hintings at the end of the story. But let's go through it. So Percy has a wish. They all get like the most granted things. Percy's main wish is that all kids to be recognized, and all kids will have a home, and every kid will be able to find their way to Camp Half-Blood one way or the other at the age of 13, and every god has to like be willing, which I think is the true meaning of the entire series so far. I'm happy that it got its payoff. Annabeth will be the architect of the brand new Olympus, which I think also pays off for her main arc of the series as well. Like I said, Grover is what I'm assuming what Pan originally was, which once again also pays off his arc. So the three characters are taken care of. Nico got his answers to all of his questions and where he stands with his father, but it's still a building arc, and so I still like the fact that it's open. We also learn that about a prophecy. Once again, Rachel becomes this prophecy person. Then we also learn that she is someone who has seen the future, and the future states that 7 more people will come in and the world will burn in fire or something along those lines. I can't remember exactly what the quote is because I was listening to an audiobook. The prophecy has been said. And then Annabeth makes a comment being like, I just want a normal summer. And he's like, we're at Camp Half-Blood. Will we ever have a normal summer? Let's have the best that we can. And then they run off into the sunset together, which alludes to them getting together, but not fully. And the way that a lot of people, like the actors, are talking about in the TV show, I'm assuming they get together in the end. I'm assuming this is our end game based on conversations that I've heard. That's the first 5 books in Percy Jackson and the Olympians. I liked it. Oh, this 4th one. I gave it a 4 out of 5. So I don't know why I didn't say that at the beginning, but it's fine. I enjoyed it. I don't have any ranking for you, just because I think you have to read it. I do like how they both tailed end with a 4. I think everything else in between was like a 3. I think maybe the last one was a 4 as well, so most of them are 4s, which is great. The monsters I really remembered because of the movie, and then the 3rd book I just didn't like. I didn't like it enough that my brain didn't really remember what it was about as I'm trying to think about it. But that's okay. That's not a problem. Do I find this series to be memorable? No, I do not. I cannot say that in about 2 months, 3 months from now, I don't know if I'll be able to remember every fact about these stories, and that's also okay. These books don't have to live long in my brain. They just have to live here for us. The next video will contain the entire series of House of Olympian. I don't hear the Olympus. I'll talk to you guys all very soon. Thank you for watching.